Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Biome podcast, a space for nurturing the ecosystem of business, body, and living. What would it be like if you gave your body a leadership role in your business and chose greater happiness every day? These are the conditions that create a healthy biome and a thriving business. I'm your host, Heather Nichols, and I'm so happy you're here. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Biome podcast. I am fresh off of a really beautiful, energetic exploration that I just had with a 6-month program that I do, the Generative Business Pods. It's a beautiful group of people that have been playing together over the last 6 months, and we do Symphony of Possibilities group taster sessions as part of the program. There's lots of different things that we do. We have small group calls and big group calls and privates and all kinds of stuff. And it's basically around creating a different reality, creating business in your way, in a way that works for you based on what you know, not based on what the experts tell you. And in a way that is actually joyful and fun. Pardon the plane. I wanted to come with you today from outside because the birds have been so beautiful this morning. And this space that we were just exploring on this call was really, really beautiful. And I wanted to kind of just bring it in here to the podcast and talk about separation and consciousness and creating future in our bodies, weaving a lot of different things together. And one of the things that I've learned over the years is just how much my mind really gets in my way. And this is why I love exploring spaces of creation, business. I think my internet just cut out, with business and everything else, from the energy of it and from what it is that you know, what it is that we know, not the rules and the regulations and the structures. And for me, I created my business from trying to do what the experts told me to do for so long, and it never really worked. And it didn't start working until I really listened to me. And then things started to really grow, and my business grew just massively for a long time, like exponentially. And it was because I committed to me. I committed to knowing what I know. And one of the things I've learned is that, separation is this energy where we compartmentalize things, put one thing over here and one thing over here and one thing over here. And next thing you know, you have all these energies that are totally separate that can't contribute to each other. And if we look at the entrepreneurial biome, the biome is a biome, a major life area, an ecosystem is so, it's actually really about the harmony, the interconnectedness and the interdependence and the contribution of its different elements. So they aren't separate parts. They are all these contributory elements that make the whole far, far greater than the sum of its parts, as they say. And you can see this with an nature, ecosystem. How I was having a conversation with some friends last night about just how natural, like, people can green the deserts and how natural, like, thriving, lush ecosystems can be created even in suboptimal conditions. And that's something that's always fascinated me. you can create water, you can create rain, there's just so many magical things that can occur when we start to work with nature and we start to work with this sense of communion, interconnectedness, creating a biome, and getting out of separation. And again, one of my favorite movies to reference, The Biggest Little Farm, is such a beautiful example of that, because they basically turn a desertified plot of land into a thriving, lush ecosystem in a self-sustaining ecosystem in 7 years. And it's amazing to watch the transformation. And we can do that. We can do that in our own lives. And if you translate that sense of ecosystem, like earth ecosystem, earth biome, if you translate it to the elements of your life, it's incredible what can show up. But we have to get out of separation. We separate from our bodies, which is why this whole exploration of the ecosystem, nurturing the ecosystem of business, body, and living is what the entrepreneurial biome is about. We separate from our bodies. We separate from, elements that are generative in the universe and in the world, and we go into our mind, and we go into trying to figure things out and trying to force things to happen, trying to control things into existence, and separating all these parts. And as we do that, we isolate and we debilitate the thrival of the ecosystem that's actually possible in our lives. And the amazing thing is that now more than ever, there's something very different that's just available energetically on the planet. And it's interesting because it really just depends on where you look and how you look. You can look from the perspective of separation, fighting, taking sides, all of the political craziness that is occurring. And the interesting thing is that I've never actually, I live in the United States. I vote in the United States. I've never actually registered with any particular party because that didn't make sense to me. I didn't want to identify myself or define, how I was going to vote. Or define myself as, one or the other of the two. People think there's only two options. There's way, way, way more than two options. But if I look at the two main parties in the United States political landscape, to me, they're just two sides of the same coin, and they fight, and they fight, and they fight, and they fight, and the fighting gets more intense and more intense. And anything that you fight, you intensify. Anything that you separate from, you render your world more difficult. You render change more difficult. You render a different possibility impossible, perhaps. If you were to take an ecosystem again and maybe say you put all the plants in pots. I love pots. I have a lot of potted flowers around here, and they do contribute to the ecosystem of my yard. But there's something about the soil and the system in the soil, the network of fungus and trees and roots and, all of the different aspects of down to micro, nutrients and even energetics of soil that are made stronger and bolstered by diversity. And it's something that we've really misidentified, I would say, in the climate of polarity and polarization and separation. That is, it's all over the world. And if I look at what's been occurring in the United States lately, it's like such an intense polarization, such an intense resistance and reaction, such an intense fighting for and fighting against. And when you're fighting for something and you're fighting against something, it's the same thing. And you're actually carving a deeper chasm rather than extrapolating into new possibilities that are about the interdependence and the relatedness and the working together of all of the various parts. But we have to let down our points of view and we have to let down our separation in order to do that. And you can see it with our earth, you can see it with our bodies, and you can see it with our relationships and our businesses. I mean, this shows up everywhere. Is like the more you fight, the more you try to control, the more we try to, kind of get a certain result to show up, we actually move away from greater possibility. We move away from greater inclusion. We move away from greater communion. And, it's one of those, you may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one moments. And I will say that this is something that this is really what I look at every day, all day long. This is what I enjoy creating more of in the world and in my world, and exploring no matter what gets created, no matter, what shows up. It's like, just, to me, it's like, this is what I am interested in exploring in this lifetime. And the absolute harmony of how things actually work when they're allowed to work together, and not from, you have to show up a certain way, because this is where we go. We misidentify what harmony and communion is, and we go like, you have to show up a certain way in order for this system to work. It's kind of like, hey, tree, you have to be X feet tall and X Y. If I decided like that this tree behind me right here needed to be a certain size in order for the ecosystem to work, I'm inserting a point of view rather than going, I wonder what contribution that tree is. And again, if you watch The Biggest Little Farm, there's all these elements that pop up. Snails, like a snail, infestation, and coyotes, and all these different elements that they start to fight, and then they sit back, they lean back, they expand out, they zoom out, they get curious, and then they go, wow, what's right about this? This is one of the greatest questions you can ask. What's right about this that I'm not getting? What gift, what contribution is this? And what can we bring, what can we add to the system rather than fight, try to make this thing that we've decided is bad go away? What can we add to the system that will expand and exponentialize the ecosystem, the biology, the harmony, the biome? And you watch this in this film occur over and over and over. And this truly is what is possible in our lives, but we have to get out of the judgments of what's wrong. We have to get out of judging ourselves. We have to get out of judging other people, and diversity itself has such an interesting, it has such an interesting, like, it's twisted, because I know in the United States, like, there's this sense of people having to fight for their uniqueness to be recognized. And I understand that, there are people that have a history of a lot of oppression and different, experiences that are not positive experiences, not kind experiences. But we can't change other people. And when we try to do that, we deepen the chasm. We deepen the separation. When we sit back and look, and we're willing to acknowledge ourselves, and we're willing to be in the question of what's right about me that I'm not getting, what's right about this that I'm not getting, like really from a curious space, we sit back and we examine that, and we're able to see from a totally different perspective and a totally different point of view. And as we do that, we become the magic that creates a different future, not from fight, not from trying to get somebody to see things from your point of view. It's like we don't even need that anymore. When you can have peace with you, when you can be the one that acknowledges your difference, when you can have peace with your body, when you can have peace with your business and your life and your financial situation, your family, your relationships, all of it, like then, and I mean true peace. I don't mean like there's a peace can be a distraction when we try to get everybody on the same page. But I mean the peace that is a choice that feeds a greater future that's available to each one of us as a choice. And when we can choose that and we can substantiate that and get out of the war with our own bodies, get out of the war with ourselves, get out of the war that shows up so insidiously with our businesses where we go to work, we show up, and we've got our boxing gloves on and we don't even know it. It's like, how can I fight for this to show up? How can I work my butt off to get this to actualize? All of those things are just points of view that we have to fight, and it wears down and diminishes the ecosystem of our lives. And when we put down the boxing gloves, and we have to be present enough to realize that they're even on, but when we put those down and we give ourselves that which, whatever it is that we're looking for, and we make peace a choosable reality, and we get out of the separation, and we begin to see, hey, people are different, and everybody's different. And so what's right about this? Is this a snail infestation that is leading to a greater future and a greater reality, like The Biggest Little Farm? And the fastest way to get to that is to get out of the judgments that things are inherently right or wrong, good or bad, to get out of the reactivity, reacting to people, reacting to situations, and get into a space of curiosity and possibility. And one of the things that really requires us to do is to go beyond our personalities, how we've defined ourselves, who we've defined ourselves as, to really get out of that. Because we use all of these judgments and these points of view that we have to drive further our definitions of ourselves that keep us. When you define something, you confine it. When you define you, you confine you. When you define a situation, you confine the situation, and you confine away from possibility, away from greater contribution that could come out of left field in ways that you've never imagined. You confine when you define. And getting out of definition as people, with ourselves, with who we are, with our personalities, with our bodies, with our businesses, with our lives, our relationships. Getting out of definition is a very tall order. Getting out of separation, getting out of personality, and therefore basically being out of control. It's a very tall order. But it is absolutely achievable, choosable, doable, beable. We just have to commit to that as the thing, as the exploration of a lifetime that yields a completely different future. And we have to see ourselves as a leader for a different future and a different possibility and a different reality, in ways that maybe nobody else will. You can lead very, very quietly from your own space. You don't have to be out there talking to people but you can just be something different with yourself and with other people. And that creates a lot of change. And the more we be that, the more that energy just grows. The biome grows, the ecosystem grows, the separation goes away, the confinement, the defining, the personalities go away. And there becomes this beautiful space of a different future and a different possibility that the world has never seen. And if you know something different is possible and available, I really invite you to choose that. And however evil you may think somebody is, or horrible, awful, wrong, whatever it is that you may think about anybody or anything, look at how do you use that judgment to define you. And you may have a lot of awareness about where somebody is functioning from, or what else could be different, or what else is possible. But awareness and judgment are not the same thing. When you have the awareness, you get to use it to create a different world, a different future, a different universe. When you turn it into judgment, you stop everything. You separate, you define, you confine, and you stop it all. You stop the movement of possibilities from occurring. So it really is up to each one of us to choose something different if we would like to. If we would like to have a different future, it's not going to be created by a particular, election outcome or, circumstance of any kind. It's not going to be created that way, because it's all kind of just two sides of the same coin that is becoming obsolete as a currency. And I think we know that. And a lot of people feel hopeless. And I'm just saying, what if hopelessness was just one choice? What if hope and choice and being present and nurturing the biome, nurturing the ecosystem by being curious is a whole other universe. And it's available for the choosing. And there's a lot of tools that support the substantiation of that space, the growth of that space, that becoming where we function from. There's a lot of tools. So keep, tapping in. And I'm so grateful for the tools of access consciousness that have given me, that are a lot of the tools that I use to live in this way as much as I can, and as much as I'm, willing to choose and choose more of every moment. And if you know something else is different, keep going. Never give up, never give in, never quit. And see what beauty you can create that is only yours to create. Please bring it on. The world requires it. Thank you so much. Bye for now. Thank you for joining me for the Entrepreneurial Biome podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. For more resources, check out my website at heathernichols.com and my social media channels as well. Have a beautiful day, and remember that your business thrives when you do.